Ruth, the first chapter. Beginning at verse 1. And we'll read through verse 16. If you have it, say amen. Amen. If you have it, then please stand with me for the reading of the word. Amen. It's a little old book. Right after Judges. Amen. Right after Joshua. Right after the Pentateuch. Come on here. If my Bible study students know what I'm talking about.
That's true. That's true.
Amen.
Ruth what, Pastor?
Huh?
Ruth one chapter.
Ruth, the first chapter. Beginning at verse 1. Amen.
Amen.
And it reads in the New International Version of the Bible, in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And so a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites. That's the Lord. Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah, the other Ruth. After they lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. And at this they wept aloud again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Amen. Now I want to use for a subject for just a few minutes. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Let us pray. Gracious Father, again I stand before your holy desk, seeking, oh gracious God, to be used by you as a mouthpiece. Move me and use me, I pray, that you, oh gracious God, might get the glory, that your people might hear what thus saith the Lord. Have your way. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. 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 Do the right thing. When things are going bad in our lives, and it's hard to see the light of day because of the depth of the darkness that surrounds us, it's easy to lose hope. And it's easy to let go of our faith. But in the Ruth narrative, we are reminded that no matter how dark things may seem, no matter how hopeless things appear, all things, good and bad, work together for good for them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Now don't get me wrong, the book of Ruth is a short book and it does not contain the great miracles performed by the hand of Aaron and Moses. You're not going to read in Ruth how somebody stretched out a staff over the Red Sea and the water stood up on the left side and stood up on the right side, and God's people were able to pass through the middle of the water on dry land. No, that's not in this book. You're not going to read about some great conquests as you would in Joshua. You're not going to read how they marched around some city in Canaan, just blowing horns and singing songs, and after a while, the walls of their enemies came tumbling down. You're not going to read that in this book. This is not that kind of book. In fact, this is the first book of the Bible without a prophecy or any particular message from God by a prophet to Israel. But it is a book that reminds us that a family of ordinary people like yours and like mine can withstand any calamity, any sickness, any famine, and any death if we just keep our faith and our trust in God. See, this book was written during the period of Judges, during that span of that 440 years that followed Joshua's leadership. And it was a dark period in the history of Israel. In fact, if you read the last verse in the last chapter in the book of Judges, it tells you, and I quote, "In those days, Israel had no king, and everyone did as they saw fit." End quote. During the time of Ruth, the nation of Israel had fallen into a backslidden state. During this period, Israel had renounced its religion and its God on at least 9 occasions. They were placed in bondage at least 7 times. And one of those times was to the Moabites for 18 long years. And when I thought about that situation, I could not help but see the parallel with our nation. As a nation, not too long ago, we were writing a glorious history. We elected a Joshua, Senator Barack Obama, as this country's first African-American president. A good man. Not a perfect man, but a good man. A God-fearing man whose morality and love for all of God's children shone through his leadership and the pursuit of his policies. He did the right thing. He had policies that ended the recession in 2008 and saved our country from a Great Depression. He had policies that rescued our auto industry and saved the jobs of thousands of Americans. He had policies that secured universal health care legislation so that millions of people could get affordable health care and no one would be left uninsured because they had a pre-existing condition. He had policies like the Paris Agreement to fight global warming and save our planet. Policies that would reverse sending people of color to jail by the thousands for a little bit of reefer and a little bit of cocaine. Policies aimed at keeping assault weapons out of the hands of children and folk that are mentally challenged.
Right.
We were writing a kind of history with a man of God at the helm of our government. But now we appear to be living in a time of judges, when the nation has lost its moral compass, has no king, and everyone is living as they see fit. And as a result, the great history that was being written by this country is being systematically demolished. Our government has been partially shut down for 35 days. And hundreds and thousands of people, come on, have been forced out of work or forced to work without pay and face an unpredictable financial future. Billionaire government secretaries are commenting from their economic towers of privilege, saying that the workers ought to quit crying and just take out a loan. One by one, our federal government leaders are being indicted for criminal activity. Judges with questionable character are being placed on the highest court in the land. And the lower courts are being filled with little beer-chugging breasts.
Wow.
We too are living in a dark period of history. But the book of Ruth reminds us, if we just keep the faith, hold on to God, treat one another with respect, if we just do the right thing, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, nor has it been entered into the hearts of men what God has in store for us. It's in the text. Now, granted, you're going to have to go home and you have to read all 4 chapters. If you want to get the full flavor of God's faithfulness and God's grace in this story. In fact, I might preach a little bit of this next week. But for now, let's see if we can glean a couple of things out of the book this morning.
Amen.
Verse 1 begins, in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites. Bless the Lord. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. They ran from the famine. When we are disobedient, rest assured that God will withhold something to get our attention. There's going to be a famine of some sort in the land. And we as a nation are suffering right now because there is a famine in the land. Love is in short supply. Tolerance is at an all-time low. Justice has just about run out. And there is a drought of simple common courtesy and decency because we as a nation are not living up to the commands and the dictates of our God. If you keep on reading, you'll learn that Elimelech, Naomi's husband, dies in Moab. But praise God, Naomi still has 2 healthy sons to work and to provide for her. Her sons married 2 women from Moab. And within 10 years, the sons die. And Naomi is left with just 2 daughter-in-laws. Now, the family is fatherless, husbandless. There's no wage earner. There's no protector. There is no family champion, and there is no covering. It's about this time that Naomi hears that the famine back in Judah has been lifted, and she decides it's time to go back home. God once again has come through for his people, realizing that her daughters have a better chance at a decent life if they remain in the homeland. She encourages Orpah and Ruth to stay in the homes of their mothers. She thanks them for their kindness that they have shown to her and to her dead husband, their dead husbands. And she pronounces God's blessings on them that they might find new husbands. The text says that Orpah and Ruth cried out and said, "No, Mom, we won't go back. We're going to stay with you." But Naomi went on and broke that thing down to him a little bit further. Naomi said, "Look here, I'm old, and I'm not going to be able to produce any more sons." She said, "In fact, if I were to get a husband tonight and had 2 boys, she said, would you hang around for them to grow up and marry them?" She said, "That's unreasonable." Verse 14 says, they wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, and she went back. But Ruth said, no. Ruth declared, "Mother, I ain't going back to them people and their gods. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." Ruth decided she was going to do the right thing. And I don't know that I've ever heard a greater statement of faith and commitment to a family member and to their God. It says a couple of things to me, and I'm going to sit down. Number 1, it says that Naomi's faith, and her son's faith were so deep and so real and so authentic that it caused Ruth, an idol worshiper, to believe. Come on here.
Amen.
Remember, Ruth was a Moabite. Her people served idol gods. But something about Naomi's faith and belief in Jehovah, even while she was running from a famine and found herself in a strange land, it convicted and convinced Ruth that Jehovah God was the one true God. And rather than stay in her homeland, whose people and customs she well knew, a place where she could no doubt start her life all over again, Ruth decided that she would rather be with Naomi, rather be among her people, rather be in a strange land and serving her God, even though it meant she had no visible means of support, and that she would have to take care of her mother-in-law for the rest of her life. Now tell me, how many of us are living that kind of a life? Come on, a life of faith that convinces our family members, convinces our friends, and even our enemies that we serve the one true living God. Come on. Are we living that kind of life? Is that kind of faith falling off of us? When we deal with folk, when we talk with folk, do they know that our God is the one? The one that stepped out of nowhere, reached back into nothing and threw out everything. Do they know that it's our God that fashioned the sun, the moon, and the stars? And he's the one that holds the whole world in the palm of his hand. Is it that our God is the one that never slumbers nor sleeps and watches over us all day and all night? That the grace of our God trumps a government shutdown. That our God is a promise-keeping God and is able to do anything but fail. I'm asking this morning, are there any Naomis in the house who are blessing the root in your life by the faith that you are exhibiting in your God? Are you praising God when times are good and when times are bad? Are you blessing God when the doctor gives you a clean bill of health and when he tells you you found a lump? Are you trusting God when death claims a loved one? Are you praying and worshiping God when your family seems to be falling apart? Ruth's declaration is a testimony of how she's been strengthened by Naomi's faith and how it has convicted and convinced her that God is. Amen. But not only that, if you read the entire book of Ruth, you'll find that her declaration foreshadowed what God had already ordained in her life. Amen. The text tells us that they went back to Bethlehem, Naomi and Ruth. And when they got there, it was barley harvesting season. Ruth told Naomi, go ahead and rest. I'm going to go out into the fields, and I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to pick up some leftover grain that we might have something to eat. And unbeknownst to her, she chose the field of a man named Boaz, who was a close relative of Naomi's deceased husband. And when Boaz saw her, she must have been fine. Because when Boaz saw her, Boaz asked his servants, who that? And the servants began to explain that this was Ruth's daughter-in-law who came back with her and is now working on her behalf. And Boaz said, well, look here. Make sure she don't work in nobody's field but mine. And when y'all glean, leave a little extra something that she might pick it up.
Amen. That's true. That's true.
And when she gets thirsty, you let her drink from the water that you all drew.
That's right.
And when she gets tired, let her rest in the shelter with the other women.
My God.
Yeah, see. Not only that, Boaz said, tell the young men, don't bother.
Well.
Amen.
Amen.
Don't see. Boaz had taken a liking to Ruth. And he was beginning to do his part to fulfill the plan that God had already ordained.
That's right. That's true.
See, it was already in God's plan to use Ruth and Boaz in his plan of salvation. If you read the whole story, you'll find that once Naomi realized that Ruth was working in Boaz's field, she informed Ruth that Boaz was family and he was qualified to exercise his right as a kinsman redeemer. Amen. See, in ancient Israel, there was a law that stated if a married man died without leaving a son to carry on the family name, the widow was not to marry outside the family, but she was to wed her husband's brother. Amen. And the first son from that union would be considered his brother's son. Amen. I thank God I got a son. And if the brother refused to take on that responsibility, the kinsman redeemer would fall to the next of kin. Y'all follow me? Ruth's husband's brother was dead. And so the right of the kinsman redeemer fell to the next of kin. And to make a long story short, Naomi told Ruth that Boaz would be her kinsman redeemer. And what Ruth needed to do to put that thing in motion. Amen. If you read in the 3rd chapter of the book, Naomi tells Ruth, tonight, Boaz will be winnowing on the threshing floor. She said, Ruth, you need to go and wash up, perfume yourself, put on your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor Don't let him know that you were there. And when he finishes eating and drinking and he goes to lie down, mark the spot. And then later on, say, go on in the room, uncover his feet, and you lie down there at his feet. Ruth did what she said. And when Boaz woke up and he looked and he saw the woman at his feet, he said, who are you? And she answered, I am your servant, Ruth. She said, spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are my kinsman redeemer. It delighted Boaz to know that he could redeem her. And so he called the elders together, set the marriage arrangement in order. And when the next of kin refused to be Ruth's kinsman redeemer, Boaz was free to marry Ruth. Amen. Now let's look back. You remember Ruth's declaration? Ruth said to Naomi, don't ask me to return to my mother's house, to my homeland, and to our idol gods. Ruth said, where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Amen. She prophesied over herself. Amen. So sometimes, Doc, you need to speak over yourself. Sometimes you got to talk like you know that you know that you know that my God has got something in store for me. If I just keep on doing the right thing, there is something prepared just for me. She prophesied over herself and showed up. She ended up where Ruth was, and she stayed where Ruth stayed, and she became Ruth's family. Come on, somebody. And her God became her God. Yeah. Amen. She prophesied, not knowing that God had already ordained her place with Naomi, her marriage with Boaz, and the birth of their son Obed, who would later father Jesse, who would later father David. Come on here, somebody been reading. She didn't know that God had already ordained to be the great-grandmother of King David through her wedding with Boaz. Come on, somebody. That God had already ordained it for her to be a Gentile woman in the lineage of King David, which makes her a Gentile woman in the lineage of Jesus Christ. Come on. Everything fell in place because she did the right thing. And folk, if we just live in a way that folk might see God in us, and if we walk by faith and do the right thing, what God has in store for us is ours to receive down the line. When you walk into your destiny, if you just do the right thing, honor your family, honor your mother, honor your husband, honor your wife, honor your sisters, honor your brother. If you do the right thing, God has got something in store for you. In fact, he has a kinsman redeemer. Come on, somebody. Don't you know you have a kinsman redeemer? Come on. Long time ago, God saw fit when we fell out of favor with the family. God saw fit to put in place a kinsman redeemer. Some 2,000 plus years ago, he said, when you fell out of favor with me, I'm going to send my son as a ransom sacrifice to redeem you from your sin and bring you back into the family. He did it. Jesus Christ came down through 42 generations to save a wretch like you and to save a wretch like me. He allowed evil men to kill him on an old rugged cross. He died that you and I might live. And because he did, I am redeemed, being bought with a price. My elder brother, my kinsman redeemer, has made a way out of nowhere. to walk by faith into the destiny that my kinsman redeemer might restore my soul. Are you glad? Did he do it for you? If he did it for you, I give him glory. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord, for redeeming me.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Make your declaration.
Yeah.
Tell somebody that loves the Lord.
Yes.
Where you go, I'm going.
Yes.
Where you stay,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to stay.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Your people
Yes.
going to be my people.
Yes.
And your God, hey,
Oh, come on.
that's going to be my God.
Yes. That's true.
That's my declaration.
Yes.
And I'm going to walk into my destiny.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but I know if I just do the right thing,
Yes.
if I just be obedient to what God has called me to do,
Yes. Yes.
when it's all over,
Mm-hmm.
I shall be